You can put it in silent.
I don't even want to hear the buzzing.
All right, let's get started. Call this meeting to order. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before we have a reading of the minutes or adopt the minutes, Chief Buckrop, can you give us an update on promotions and things of that nature? What's transpired since the last time we met?
Yeah, well, since the last time you and I met, or?
Since the last time we had a meeting.
Okay, since the last meeting, Chief Lang has stepped down, resigned his position at Madison Township, and Trustee McDonough named myself as the new fire chief. And after I took over as fire chief, I appointed Jordan Russell as division chief and Anthony McClure as division chief.
And they're both here. How about that?
Yep.
All right. All right.
That's about
Anything
it.
else? Okay. All right. Jim, you got the minutes? You want to read them out loud or just adopt them?
No, I'm saying as written. I've read them. You read most of it? You read it?
Oh, I read it, yeah. I've read it.
Yeah, there was a copy there. I don't know who all got it. Is there any questions on it?
I have no questions.
And this is for the February 17th one.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
Okay. No, make a motion to adopt the minutes as written.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And so those minutes are adopted.
Okay, we'll sign to
Yes. Let's.
once you got one, the next one, somebody wants it done. You got a copy of one, so I'll read it. I get lunch. I should get started.
Yep. All right. And the meeting, the minutes from the last meeting.
They're still in the process. I had trouble with the recorder. So,
Okay.
but I got that ironed out. It should be okay next time. It's a long meeting.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion that we table that those minutes until our next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so those minutes from our last meeting are tabled until the next meeting. All right. Now, to start out, I just want to say something to start out. I hope everybody takes it in the right spirit and the right attitude. But in the past, we've kind of had a problem with button heads. You know, the residents, the fire department, you know, and it's time for us to come together and move forward. We need to turn the page and move forward. And as part of that, we're going to have a new format to our meetings. And part of that format is going to be real simple. We'll open as we usually do. We'll have a moment of silence so you can pray or meditate, whatever you want to do in that moment. And then we're going to have reports from different departments. For example, Chief Buckrop will assign to his people, or he'll make the report himself on different things that we're looking for. And some of the things that we're looking for are the number of runs that EMS service does and what kind of income we're generating off those runs. Also, we'd like a breakdown on fire runs as far as mutual assist and what we're actually doing in Madison Township. And that's one of the things that we want. One of the other things we want is vehicle maintenance history. We spend a lot of money on vehicle maintenance, and obviously the board is in charge of the funds. and we like to know where those funds are going as far as vehicle maintenance. And I'll get into a vehicle later that really concerns me, really gave me heartburn, quite frankly. And but going forward, we're going to solve that issue, okay? Also, we like to have a report on personnel as far as any turnover, anybody that's promoted, any training that's accomplished, that we need to give somebody an attaboy, a pat on the back. You know, it's not all about just money. Sometimes we got to be, you know, we're all in this together. There's not any one person that runs the fire department or the township or the board. And if you guys disagree with anything I say at any point, you
I'll tell you.
yeah, I figured you would. We also wanted to keep a look at fuel costs. Right now, we purchase our fuel through the school, and right now that fuel costs us $1.81 a gallon. And in town, obviously, it's over $3 a gallon. And as I looked at the gas report for April, we spent $1,400 roughly in fuel, plus an additional $275. That $275 was somebody going to town to get their gas and so forth. The bus barn is only, 2 miles down the road? So there's really no reason, unless we're out of town, there's no reason to not buy our fuel currently at the bus depot. If the price changes and it's cheaper in town, then obviously that's what we need to do. As long as it's $1.81, we're not going to find it in town anywhere for that. So we all need to be on the same page and keep our costs down. Any new policies that may come up, like to hear any reports on any new policies that come up, just because they can affect our cost as well. And policies obviously are determined by the trustee and the fire chief. They're not determined by the board. We don't determine policy, we determine money. But it is interesting and it is insightful to know what the policies are that are being enacted. We would also like the EMS director, if she's here, to give us a report on anything that she sees. We also want a report from the clerk, anything that she sees that's outstanding that needs to be brought to our attention, or to just give us a general overview of what kind of financial condition we're in. We'd also like to get a report from the trustee on anything that might be outstanding, anything that might be that needs to be brought to the board's attention. So that's kind of the general format we want to do. We want to get everybody involved and know what's going on and know how we're spending our money and how we're spending the taxpayers' money. And so if we get asked a question, which we do, we can answer the question and say, yeah, this is what's going on, and this is why we spent this money or didn't spend this money, and this is where we're at. And some residents are concerned about those kind of things. All right, so then after that, we'll do our agenda, we'll do our old new business and do our good of the order, and then we'll get out of Dodge, so to say. So that'll be our new format for our meetings. Having said that, one of the first things I want to talk about that's on our agenda is vehicles. We have a new ladder truck that's ordered. I think we're looking at September now, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Before we see the new ladder truck. They're attributing it to COVID. I don't know. That's what they're saying. That's all you can do is accept what they're saying. So we're looking at, from the time of inception to the time we receive it, will be approximately 2 years, because the contract was signed in September of 2019. Now, they're supposed to be $100 a day off the vehicle or what. I'm not sure what the understanding is or the agreement is, but we need to find that out. What is the actual agreement? What are they going to give us $100 towards our purchase? Are they going to give us $100 credit? What is the agreement?
When we last spoke with them, we was going to be credit towards the vehicle, but I'm going to see if we can do that to where we could possibly use that in credit to actually equip the truck. That'd be better use of the money.
I'm not completely sold on that, and I'll tell you why I'm not completely sold on that. The reason I'm not sold on that is because if we take a credit towards equipment, they're not really giving us $100 a day, because we're going to be buying the equipment from them. The equipment costs them something, but it doesn't cost them $100 a day. So it may cost them $35 a day, the markup on the equipment. So I'm not real sold on that, but that's not my decision. But and I don't know if we've reached an actual understanding with them, that's what I'm getting at.
Still waiting until we get closer to settling this out.
Something else to note on that is a lot of times if you buy equipment with the new apparatus, you get it at a discounted cost as if we went out and bought it. Now, that's not saying they're still gonna mark it up, but we're still gonna get it cheaper than if we take the money and go somewhere else and buy it.
Right, I understand that, but I also understand that, like you said, they're gonna charge us a markup on it.
Anybody we buy it from is going to charge a markup. That argument's mute because no matter where we go, they got to have.
So do we cut off our nose to spite our face?
Yeah, I
Well,
don't
what kind
understand that.
what exactly kind of equipment do we need to put on this truck that we don't have?
Go ahead and give them a full list of everything that we're going to put on that bad boy. Yeah, so you can be here for a while.
Yeah, I can get you a list of everything once we have that completed, but, I mean, it's, you're supplying a fire truck, so there's a
Well, I
lot of
understand you're
equipment
supplying
on
a fire truck and there's a lot of equipment, but my question is, what equipment don't we have that we'll be putting on it? That's the,
We haven't, at least I have not been involved in that assessment yet.
They have to break down and see what we had. There was I thought Mike had a breakdown of everything that he was wanting to get to update and get replaced on that.
And there might be, I have not seen
Yeah,
that.
double check with Mike.
That was in the original cost.
I think so.
What was the
When we-
original cost?
We'll break down of what all he wanted to get with the truck, not the truck
Oh.
itself.
I don't know about
So
that.
I think he had kind of a breakdown of it. I'd have to I can call him later and find out.
all right, and I want to talk about ambulance 32, the backup ambulance, for just a moment. Back in July 20 of 2020, that ambulance was sent over to Andy Moore Chevrolet. They were having problems diagnosing it, having problems getting parts. September 9th, they pushed the vehicle out of their service bay and it sat on the lot until January 6th, when we decided to get a PCM rebuilt. We got the PCM rebuilt. January 24th, they installed it, test drove it. Still has an issue. February 26th, it goes back to Andy Moore. This time it's a coolant leak. We ended up, the first trip, spent approximately $4,900 on the first trip. Okay. Second trip, we end up putting an engine in it for $19,000, $131.34. This is the second replacement engine of this ambulance with 88,224 miles. My question is, there's a couple questions, but one is, do we have maintenance records on this vehicle? Because I find it, I spent 25 years in the automotive business, partially as a service manager. So I'm pretty familiar with how this stuff works. I'm really, I don't even know what to think about it, 88,000 miles and having two engines replaced. That's unconscionable, because these engines should last 200,000 miles. Now, somebody's going to say, it's a 6.0 Ford diesel. Yes, it is, but it should still go at least 200,000 miles. I was talking to Chief Buckrop, and as I was telling him, if the maintenance on this vehicle in the owner's manual says the oil should be changed every 10,000 miles, it needs to be changed every 5,000 miles. Coolant flushes need to be done annually on this vehicle. Otherwise, 2 years from now, we're going to be putting another $19,000 in this vehicle. So what we would like to see, and that's why I mentioned we would like to see vehicle maintenance done and the dollars spent on vehicle maintenance and so forth. So you see you've got approximately $25,000 in this one ambulance. Okay? How much of your maintenance budget is that?
Well, part of that was done last year, I believe, and then the engine was done this year. I could be wrong on that, but to answer your question, that's a very big chunk. That's
Very big
actually
chunk.
all of the maintenance budget.
So your maintenance budget is spent on one vehicle but nobody can tell us whether we properly maintain the vehicle or not. We don't have the documentation to support
Well,
whether we.
no. You never asked if we have the documentation.
Yes, I
You're
did.
assuming because Mike's been giving it to you guys up until this meeting, every meeting showing a breakdown of
No,
everything
sir.
that was in
No,
there.
sir. I hate to, I will respectfully disagree with you.
Did you ask me for those records?
I didn't ask you for the records, no. I said, do we have records? I didn't ask you for the records.
Okay, yes, we absolutely have records.
Well, then we're doing something wrong, because 88,000 miles, there's no reason for this vehicle to have two engines. Now, as a taxpayer and as a board member, I gotta tell you, that concerns me. The other thing that concerns me about this invoice, and I've read over this invoice several times, I would not have accepted this invoice because there is nothing on this invoice that tells me what exactly was wrong with this vehicle. So if I hand this to Mr. Johnson, tell me what was wrong with that vehicle, he wouldn't be able to tell me what was wrong with that vehicle, other than it had a coolant leak.
I wish I could fool on you, let's sit here.
But the point is, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, somebody picks that up, they're gonna go, why did we put an engine in? So it behooves us to make sure that our invoices are properly
I
documented.
forgot, I got a diesel too.
Yeah, this technician who worked on this did a great job documenting what he did, as far as the bolts he took apart and disassembling the engine and what he did. But there's nothing there that tells me that it was a head gasket that was leaking. The only way I knew it was a head gasket that was leaking is I took the time to call Andy Moore Truck Center and talk to the service advisor. And I learned a great deal talking to the young man, and some of it I wasn't real impressed with. The other thing I'm looking at is, here we spent $19,000 with Andy Moore, and I don't think we're very good negotiators, because brake clean, they're charging us for brake clean on a $19,000 job. If I'd have been the service manager, somebody come to me and say, hey, can you at least get rid of the brake clean? Yeah, sure, $19,000, yeah, I'll take care of the brake clean. What kind of discount you want? $19,000, I mean, good grief. And having just had it there for $4,900. So I guess my point is, going forward, we need to be better stewards and better caretakers of our equipment and of our invoices. Anybody have any questions on that? Any comments? Now, I know that was past fire chief. I know that. And the only reason I bring it up is so that we, going forward, do not repeat the same mistakes. That's the only reason I mentioned it. The other thing is, we have currently how many drive home or take home vehicles or chief vehicles, whatever you want to call them?
We have four
right?
SUVs, yes.
4 SUVs, and we have one that's ordered, correct?
Yes.
And that will be here,
I haven't gotten an update on that.
okay. It's probably waiting for a chip. So we might not see it till the end of the year also, but it's waiting on a chip. What is our plan on how many vehicles that we're going to keep around?
Trustee McDonough and I have not discussed that.
Well, I think we probably ought to get on the stick and figure that out, because we're spending a lot of money on gas and maintenance on 4 vehicles. I looked at the gas report for April. Like I said, it was $1,391. $689 of it was gas on 5 vehicles. Now, did that include the lawnmower and the brush truck? I don't know, because the way the invoice is set out, it's by vehicle. Are we getting gas in that for the brush truck and the lawnmower down at the school? Do you know?
For the brush truck, that's an actual vehicle.
Right, I understand that.
So yes, it
Okay.
gets fuel.
Okay, but I don't see that listed on the thing. How have we got it listed on the invoice? I guess is my question. As a brush truck?
I would have to
Okay.
look at the invoice.
What about gas for the mower? How's that listed on the invoice?
I think,
Those cans don't have their own cards or nothing,
Right,
so
so
we
we
utilize
use-
a gas card
It's
out
either
of the
vehicle
vehicle.
or dive bus.
Right.
okay, so we use one of the cards out of one of the other vehicles, because
Okay.
we don't have a card for the individual cans.
That's what I wanted to know. Okay. Well, $689 for gas alone. That doesn't include the diesel fuel for 1 month. I didn't even bother to add up the maintenance on those vehicles for the month or for year to date either. So I think we need to devise a plan, what we're gonna do as far as those go. I get complaints and from people that are wanting to know why all these chief vehicles are running around town. And I understand part of it, okay? And I'm not begrudging to say that we don't need vehicles. Well, my question is, how many do we need? Prior administrations have done with 2 vehicles. Here we are, we're sitting on 4 and a 5th coming. And for a fire department our size, for a township our size, that's a lot of vehicles. I don't care how you slice and dice it, that's a lot of vehicles for one department. Aside from our apparatus. Our apparatus obviously isn't gonna get great mileage. What do we get with a pumper or with the engine? 5 miles a gallon at the most. So, but we don't need the added expense of more vehicles than what we need, is my point. Any questions, comments? All right. I would like to see some sort of plan as to what we're gonna do there. The other part of that is, do we have a policy as to where these vehicles are allowed to go? Okay, and it's a written policy and everybody understands the policy? Okay. Because I hear horror stories, and I'll be honest with you, I don't believe half the stories I hear, quite frankly. And a lot of times I'll check the sources. So I don't believe everything I hear, so don't say I'm beating everybody up over being everywhere. I don't believe half of what I hear, but I do believe some of it, yes.
I would like to hear a brief summary of just what the policy is of where those vehicles are allowed to go.
In Morgan County or surrounding counties?
Your policy, the policy for this place here. What is the policy for the fire department vehicles? Particularly the take-home vehicls.
That's what he was talking
That's what I
about.
just said.
They can go
He
to
just
this
answered your
county and all
question.
the other ones. So
He
they
just
can go
answered
to
your-
Lake Monroe and they can go all over the place.
Why?
That's the policy. I think it's changing, but
It seems a little. They're not used only for fire department business.
no.
That is a question for the chief and the trustee. Board doesn't know. Yes.
Could we get tracking on these vehicles so we would know? And also, I personally think the policy should be changed because they, a surrounding county, you're a long distance away, or you could be a long distance away from here. I mean, you could go clear to the south end of Monroe County, or clear down to the west side of Owen County, and that's a long distance. And we were reported before that some of these are going out, and there's no way that a person can monitor that. I mean, people can take their car wherever they want to, and he's not gonna, who's gonna know? They say they monitor it, but there's no way they can. So I think that the township needs to look into a way to put tracking on all the vehicles so you know where they're at and what.
That costs money.
Yes, it does. But I think in the long run, it might be a wise investment.
Maybe some of the trustees have to go for
That's what I say, that's policy, that's trustee, and I will tell you this much, I've looked into it as far as what the cost is involved. And it's really not that expensive to track a vehicle anymore. I know that with my work vehicle, they know when I open and close the door. They know where I'm at all the time.
What kind of cost have you seen?
About $25 a month per vehicle. But we're not talking about tracking the apparatus per se, the trucks or just the SUVs. So if you had 4, which I would hope we
$100 a
wouldn't have
month.
4, but if you had 4, it'd be $100 a month. To track them. To know where they're at. So, yes, I have looked into it, but it's not my call. So, all right. You have anything on vehicles? Questions,
No, I've brought that up before, so.
comments? All right, I think on the vehicle deal, I think we need to have some sort of response here, probably within the next month on what we're doing. Just because, from a financial standpoint of what we got going out there. So that's my recommendation, that we could get something in a month. All right,
I got one question.
Yes.
All those vehicles are in Madison Township except yours, right? At night, I mean,
No, he's in the township.
he is
no,
now?
Tim Smith.
Tim is the one
Oh,
that
I-
is
well, who's-
not.
No, okay, he's the
He's
one.
All the rest of them live in the township.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The other three all live here in the township.
Okay, so there's only one that doesn't,
Mhm.
okay,
I
that's
believe
fine. I
he
knew
lives
there
in,
was
he lives
one.
in Plainfield.
Mhm.
Okay,
When you said the other three, isn't only 3 going out and 1 stays here as a pool car? Or no?
Yes, right now.
Right, so 3 of them are assigned to people.
that's all I wanted to say.
I want to turn to finances just a little bit. On finances, I think we're not in what I would call bad shape, but I will tell you that I think if we take out any more loans, we're going to start putting ourselves in a bad situation. I haven't put the figure yet together, but I will, on the interest alone we're paying on loans. We have loan on apparatus, we have lease loan on turnout gear, and we now have a lease loan on radios. We need to put a kibosh to the loans right now, because right now you're at a point where your maintenance budget is basically done for the year, and you still have annual inspections to do yet on pumpers and things like that. Now, I don't know what an annual inspection costs, but imagine it can't be cheap to have an annual inspection done. And then if you have to have a pump rebuilt or a seal put in, then you got that added to cost as well, correct? So, if things start to come up, and we've got just living on just normal operating business, we can't have, 5 and 6 loans out there. We're not gonna be able to survive. You can't survive at home that way, because all your money is going, it's tied up in your loans, and then you don't have money to do what you need to do. I don't have anybody here that likes to be strapped down with loans. Credit seems to be the American way of doing things, but it's also a killer, because you don't have the freedom to do what you need to do, or to get some of the things you want to get, because you're tied down. Did I vote for the radios last time for that loan? Yes, and I'll tell you why. Because it was needed, and because we did not put ourselves in a position where we could buy those, or at least put down a good amount of money on them, because we hadn't been prudent or physically responsible. Now, when I say that, I'm going to mention something, and I know somebody's probably going to get mad and probably be upset or whatever, but just remember, we're all adults here, and we're trying to get along and go forward here. When we did the restoration for the vent hoods and all that stuff, I saw the estimate for a marble or granite countertop. Okay, I don't have any problem with granite or marble. I think it's great. But I'll tell you what, laminate's a whole lot cheaper. This is a space pen. Okay, $1 million was spent developing this pen back in the 1960s. It was designed for writing in space, zero gravity situations, where you can write upside down, you can do whatever you want. In today's dollar, it costs $8.2 million to develop that ink pen. USA used that pen. Do you know what the Russians used? And remember, we were in a race with the Russians back then. I mean, it was on. Russians versus the USA. This is what they used. Number 2 lead graphite pencil. There are times when we need to use the lead graphite pencil instead of the space pen. It's not because we don't want to use a space pen. It's not because we don't like the space pen. It's because this is what we can afford. This is what we have to do. Does anybody like to pinch pennies? No. Well, some people. We got the coupon clippers and all those folks, you know. But we generally at home, we try to live within our what? Our means, right? We try to live within our means. If that means we have to buy pencils instead of pens, we buy pencils. You know, sometimes at home, we got to go to the Dollar Tree or the Dollar General store instead of to Kohl's or J.C. Penney or some of the other places that we would like to go. Going forward, I think we need to look at, are we using the pencil or are we using the space pen? What can we get by with? And that's not to shortchange our service. That's not to shortchange what we're doing. I had, just last week, I had the county call me. And they've called Chief Buckrop and they've called Scott McDonough, the trustee. They wanted to know if we were going to be on their EMS service. And my first word to them was no. Because we have our own EMS service and I think we're doing a fine job. And he wanted to meet with me and some other people. I said, you're wasting your time. It's not going to happen. We're going to stick with what we got. What we got works. It's good. We can depend on it. It's good. Now, why would I change EMS services? I wouldn't change EMS services because we do a good job. I was telling Chief the other day, I go on Facebook and I see all kinds of compliments about the fire department personnel. And I think that's good. And I told the chief, I said, I think what we need to do is when somebody completes some training or where they do something that deserves an attaboy, maybe we ought to send a picture to the newspaper with a little bio till they get sick of seeing us. I mean, I think we can deserve to toot our own horn. On the same hand, we need to make sure we're physically responsible that we can still do that. And so going forward, I think the board is going to take a harder look. It's not to slap anybody around. It's not to be bad guys. It's to be responsible with the taxpayers' money. We can still get it done, but we're probably going to have to tighten our belt. Did you have any comments or questions?
No.
Nope. Does anybody have any comments or questions? I'll keep asking it because I want feedback. See what you guys think. I mean, we're in this together, so let's if you've got an objection or something, speak up. Okay?
Only thing I'd like to add is and you know, we discussed it when we met the other day. I think we all would rather purchase radios and monitors and turnout gear and things of that nature with cash rather than a loan. And one of the best ways we have to do that is the CUME fund. We came to this board, we being the township or the fire department came to this board several years ago asking for a raise in the CUME fund so that we could start building for larger purchases like that. And that board gave us an increase that basically didn't cover the legal, the financial planning, and the advertising that went into the meeting where we asked for that.
Well,
So it's not, this is a group venture between the two entities here. So there's a little bit to shoulder on each side of this table.
what you have to remember too, though, is we are actually at the state max in the rate. We're at .333. That's the max we can go.
We are now.
We are now.
We weren't.
We have been for over a year.
Well, yeah, we've maxed out our CUME fund now. When we came originally, this was how many years ago? Three or four years ago. We came to
do this, exactly what you're talking about, to build a fund, not
Exactly.
to do loans, but then we were shot down, so now we're doing loans. So you're preaching to us not to do loans when we pre-planned years ago not to be doing loans now, but was shot down. And I don't remember who was on the board prior, but yeah, it's different people. But yeah,
Well,
it's just
I have a question, but with like the turnout gear and all of that, it was kind of under, at least to my understanding, that they kind of keep those loans going every 5 years because it was kind of like if we don't use it, we lose it.
No, it decreases.
Yeah.
It
So
automatically decreases,
Right.
my understanding.
Yeah.
We have to go back in every once in a while and bring it back up to what we
Right.
can. That was my understanding.
If the,
Yeah, that-
if the lease drops off and we don't renew that lease, then the rate obviously drops. Well, then, when we need, turnout gear again, and we go for a lease purchase because we don't have the cash, now it looks like
Now-
our taxes went up.
Right, so that was my correct understanding to that, and I think that was what they were trying to avoid, was the constant fluctuations in property taxes.
Same with the apparatus loans.
Yeah,
Yep.
I would personally, as a taxpayer, I would rather it be consistent than the constant up and down, up and down.
Well, there are gonna be things you have to have loans for.
Right.
We all know that, like apparatus, you're not gonna be able to afford to go out and buy an $800,000 truck.
Right.
It's not gonna happen, especially in a township this size. We understand that. But what I'm speaking of is like the radios. We bought a car, and there are several other things, and I will tell you this much, and I don't know why this is, but I've looked at it the last several years. It seems like December 31st, we go Christmas shopping. Instead of hanging on to the money, we go Christmas shopping. And that's what I call it. You can call it whatever you want. But December 31st, we go out and, like, we gotta spend what we got, basically. And, it needs to be smart. We need to be smarter about the way we spend our money. Yes, ma'am?
What are the county rules about that money? Does it run out? Does it go back to the county? Is
Not
it-
the cume
The
fund.
cume fund. You can that's what, it's called an accumulative fund for that reason. So
Right.
that you can keep
adding
to
on?
that.
So if we have extra money at the end of the year, if the township does, then the township can put that into the cumulative fund for the following year?
No.
No.
It's
Okay.
absolutely part of the cumulative fund already.
Only the
Okay,
cume fund is what he's talking about, one line item out of all of them.
right.
But the part he doesn't understand is we don't buy a lot of stuff throughout the year because we have a budget that we're trying to maintain. So at the end of the year, when we're getting closer to saying, okay, we're comfortable now buying things that we do need, that's when you'll typically see it, because you're not gonna spend a bunch of money at the beginning of the year not knowing what you're gonna get into. So that's
Yeah.
just, we're not understanding the process comes in.
No, I get that. I get the process. My mom's worked in government
Yeah.
forever. Like, I get it. I just didn't know if there was like a rule. Like, if we have $20,000, I know I'm just
I
throwing
got
up
you.
stuff.
Yeah.
Like, if we have $20,000 and we're gonna, we're spending this right now, we don't really need anything, but maybe we prepare for the following year, stuff that we are going to buy in the future. But if we didn't spend that money, does it chill? Do we get less money from the county the following year because we didn't spend it down?
Depending on which line item it is, you lose it.
Okay. Okay. But if it's cumulative, then you don't.
It rolls.
Okay. Thank you.
So you can add to it the next year and put yourself.
I'm trying
in a
to
better position.
read through that. Hold on a minute. I'm trying to play that back in my mind. Go ahead, Trudy. I know you're over here dying, so I seen you. Go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, on the funds, you never lose the money, so if there's 100,000 budgeted and you only spent 80,000, you have 20,000 left, that is, it just stays in that fund. So the
Yeah.
beginning balance, let's say the beginning balance was 0, now your beginning balance is 20,000. And what happens is, if you don't, and then the next year another $100,000 budget, and you needed something extra, then you can do an additional appropriation for whatever funds.
Yeah, that's
What
right.
what I wanted to say is, I don't believe that cume rate ever lowers unless the board lowers it. Because that cume rate right now is at 0.333, and the only way that gets lowered is if the board would vote on it to lower it. It's just like the board had a vote on it to up the rate.
We went through that a few years ago, and I was told that it automatic would lower every year.
It did it. It did it to us because we had to re-vote it. We had to
Yeah.
vote it back in.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah,
that's
It
what we-
does. It goes down
It
every
goes
year.
down.
Every year.
and that was supposed to be the
It
savings. so-
automatically goes down.
Yep. Sure does.
unless you vote it. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was the savings plan to not have these loans at exactly what you're talking about. And we was voted down time and time again. And he is not kidding. When we couldn't even the increase that we got from the Q fund didn't even cover the expense it cost to put the advertisement in the paper.
We had to bring in the financial planner so that we could provide the board with
All
the tax impact to the citizens. We had to bring in legal, we had to advertise the meeting, and the increase that the board granted for the cume fund literally didn't cover, or it was very close
Yeah,
to
everything we had.
just barely covering the expenses for the meeting. So, again, there's some to shoulder on both sides of the table.
Well,
That's
I know
our
that-
hope as well.
I know that right now it's at the max.
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Well, one other thing I wanted to mention, since you brought out that, express restorations, that was, for Station 31, and some of it was for here, is that correct?
It
The,
was for both stations.
Both stations.
both
yeah.
stations.
Mhm.
But the expense ended up in the capital outlays for the township. And so that's why I brought out in a prior meeting that the township is paying for all these expenses of these other funds that I don't think is right. And because this was done this way, that's what allowed them to get that next other car. There's no way they could have afforded it had they not had the township pay for all the remodeling.
Yeah, I'm not sure, I don't remember that, but
Yeah, I
at
mean,
the end of the day,
it's
the
right here in
township
the annual
owns the
report.
building, so why would it not help to repair the building, to keep its asset maintained? I'm kinda confused on what you're asking, I guess.
Well, I'm not asking anything, I'm just making a statement that says that,
So
those,
you, oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
okay, Station 31 has, in the past, always, everything that's done at Station 31 has always gone through the firefighting fund. And now, this time, this $18,000, which granted, the whole 18 wasn't for 31, some of it's for this one, but this is for really the firefighting department. We have two little offices maybe for the township, and we're paying $18,000, over 18,000, almost between 18 and 19,000 to get that done. What I'm trying to say is, if this were put in the correct fund, then expenditures like getting this car wouldn't have been able to happen. And then that money could have eventually have gone for equipment, things that we need.
Yes, sir.
So I kind of to throw onto that, should, as the trustee said, that's the township's assets as the buildings. And that money's not coming out of the CUME fund, out of the fire department fund. Kind of to go back on that, does that mean we should pay the utilities?
Yeah.
So we should just scratch half the budget and everything come out of the fire fund if it deals with the fire department buildings.
Well, the utilities should be prorated based, the way I believe it should happen, which is not the way it's happening, but it should be based on square footage.
So since we just have two,
So some of the utilities would go for the township fund.
so the township should pay for the two township offices and the fire department pay for the rest.
Correct.
You've got, currently you have, the public assistance, township offices are paying, a good deal of the expenses as far as utilities and trash pickup and water and those sort of things currently.
Well,
Personally, I think that's a
personnel
judgment
is-
call. I mean,
Yeah, and
It's a
personnel is
township
very
asset,
different
so-
at buildings, so I wouldn't go off of a square footage type of thing, because you've got X amount of people down at 31 and X amount of people at 32, and if you went off of square footage, that wouldn't always equal out, like, I don't feel like that would be the most efficient way of managing that.
Well, that's the way IRS looks at the distribution of expenses in most home offices, though.
Yes.
And that's a pretty general rule that they grab at to look at stuff like that.
Well, I'm not advocating changing it at this point, but I will tell you from being in a business atmosphere, in the service department, we carried our own weight. That was just the way it was set up there. You know, each department carried their own weight, and that's the way it was set up with the dealerships. If the counties do it different, then they do it different. Our goal, I think our goal as a board is to make sure that every department can survive, you know, and do their job. It's not to to nitpick everybody to death, it's to make sure everybody can survive and everybody can do their job without a bunch of hassle. I mean, if we start looking at utilities and so forth, and we say we got to divide it up by square footage, then you guys are going to be in trouble at this point. So, if the way it's set up right now, it needs to be left alone temporarily for now, cause it's what's working right now. And that's what we need it to work. So, having said that, personnel wise, how many full-time firefighters we have currently?
Currently, we have 7.
7, and we need 2 more, right? And you're working on getting 2 more, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and we still have, what, only 3, or how many do we usually have at 31?
With the paramedic down there, we have 4 down there.
Yeah, because we're keeping a paramedic down there with an ambulance, correct? 24/7.
Per the contract.
Yeah, for the contract. I actually went into 31 yesterday. I stopped by, and they must have been out on a run or something, because I walked in and had free reign of the place. There wasn't nobody around. It was kind of fun. But,
I'd like to know that when that happens.
well,
That's a big security issue.
Yeah,
well, to your point, it's a big security issue, okay? Then why was I able to walk in?
You got a passcode to get in, don't you?
I didn't have to have anything to get in. I just walked in the door.
no, what I'm saying is, if that's the case, I would, rather than bringing up at a board meeting, I would rather you call me so that I can fix the security issue.
That's not what I was getting at.
No, I'm making the point that, I mean, I would
That's
like to
fine.
know about that.
That's fine. I'm just saying,
Now
it
you
wasn't,
do.
it wasn't,
Yeah, what can I do about it now, though?
well, I'm just saying, I was just making conversation, okay? I walked in.
I wasn't trying to argue, I was just saying that from
Walked
now
in.
on, I would like to know.
And I did notice, and that, to my point, I did notice that the backup ambulance was there, and I noticed that there was a white board there that said who was on duty and who was doing what. And I thought that was great, to be able to walk in and see, I know what's going on.
But nobody there?
Well, they could have been out back cooking or on a run, I don't know. I didn't bother to check, I just, since nobody was there, I just turned around and left. And all I was saying is I saw the medic was there and that there was assignments, that's all I'm saying.
There's
And I
a
thought
board
that was-
here too, if you
Yeah.
ever wanna see it.
I've seen it, I was in there the other day. So, and I thought that was great, that there was an ambulance there. It wasn't the new one, but it was the backup, so it was there and somebody was assigned to it, that's all I'm saying. So, and it's good to see that we're not in breach of contract. So, all right. So personnel are assigned to it. On, public assistance, what is the county doing currently?
As far as what?
As far as it, we were referring everybody to the county, correct?
That was only for rental assistance, and that was through a state program.
Okay, so we're still doing,
We're still taking applications, but anytime there's a program that's available, we always refer them out and make sure that there's assistance out there first, and they gotta qualify.
okay, because as I looked at the numbers, I didn't see where we were actually, the only money we're spending is on administration.
Yeah, right now it's been, they're pretty much everything with all the different programs that's came out since COVID. There's a lot of programs out there that's been able to help, but we still get a lot of calls, and then we refer them out.
Do you think, and I'm gonna ask you because you're more familiar with, I'm gonna ask you guys. With everything that's going on, do you think that we should still be paying the full investigator wages when we're referring people to other places and we're not really doing a whole lot?
I mean, I guess if they're not working on anything, then no.
I tell you what,
I
I
don't
will
know
start
how
forwarding
that-
all my calls to you three, to field, that she has the field, and then you spend the time doing it, then call me back and let me know what you think about that. And we can
You know what, Scott, I asked you a simple question.
I did, I'm giving you
You're
the
out of
answer.
order, is what you are. Now, let me tell you something. You are out of order giving me an answer like that. You feel
I'm asking you.
that's not, no, that's not an answer, sir. The answer is, how much time is being spent on it? And you're
That's what we're
getting,
telling you. I have, so they're not gonna track somebody every time somebody calls. I'm not gonna sit there and track the time it takes somebody to call that back, because that's a waste of
okay,
time.
so what you're saying, as an administrator, since you are the administrator of the township, you don't have any idea how much time is being spent on that program?
No, because it varies, and I'm not, and I've already told you this multiple times. I know you're on your campaign trail, and it's
I'm not
cool,
on a campaign trail.
but I'm telling you, I'm not going to, I have told you this multiple times, I am not gonna sit there and say, Denise, write down, or Kelly when she was in here, write down every time you're doing something, because that's not proactive. That's not, I run a very big business when I'm on my full-time job. I wouldn't ever think about doing something like that, because they have a job to do. That's what they're gonna do. Whether it takes them 2 hours a week, 20 hours a week, it's gonna vary because you don't know how many calls are coming in. I'm giving you the answer.
How many hours do your deputy chief work approximately?
It varies week by week.
Okay, so there's no set time?
No, they're not required. I only have one deputy chief, by the way.
For now, all right.
Yes.
Okay, so you have no idea
So
how
I
much
guess,
time is
I
being
guess that
spent?
question could be turned over to you, Denise.
It
Do you-
could vary because.
on average,
I-
like, is there like, maybe last week, how many, just off the top of your head,
It
how
could
many
be
calls?
2 to 5 hours a week, depending on the phone calls, the people I talk to, some of the nature of the phone calls that I'm taking, the phone tagging that goes back and forth. And I also do this stuff during the day. I mean, I will take lunch breaks so I mean, it could be 2 to 5 hours a week, it just depends. I mean, when people call for assistance, it's not, hey, what can you do for me?
It's a
They
lot.
start pouring their hearts out as well. So there's no set schedule. I could go a week and not hear from anybody. It depends.
And the influx of people that are in and out of this building daily, just being in here, looking for assistance applications, is astounding right now.
Are there office hours now?
By appointment only, but yeah, they're posted up on the door.
And there's applications available.
And
so
we have
they-
applications right inside the door.
Are they up to date ones? I remember one time.
Yeah,
we
they're
had
in
a problem
compliance,
with
yeah, every
Opus.
year we make sure they're up to compliance,
Okay.
yeah. But a lot of times, we'll talk to them, spend time, like I spent on my lunch break today, I talked to a lady from out of state because her daughter, I had to listen to 20 minutes of what was wrong with her to get her address to find out she's in Marion County.
And I
It's-
played phone tag with her 4 times.
okay, yeah, she knows what I'm talking about today.
Oklahoma.
But yeah, you're asking for something that I'm not going to provide. I've done told you that multiple times. I'm not going to sit there and have her write down every minute of everything she's doing.
Nobody's
She's
asking
got
for
something in
that.
it.
Nobody's asking for
Yeah,
that.
I
it's
think
a
he
lot
was,
of time,
I think he was just wanting an idea of,
Generalities.
like, just an
you have
idea
to-
of what was
Yeah,
being
she's sitting right
done.
back there, so we can definitely ask her more than.
Yeah, I mean, it varies, like I said, there could be a week where I don't hear from anybody. Yeah, I get all kinds of phone calls. Some of them I will not cut off, I will listen to them, even if it means I gotta sit on the phone with them for a half hour. I might not be able to help with that certain situation, but I'm not gonna just cut them off either.
So
I'm
there's
gonna
something-
try to do what I can without stepping out of my bounds. So,
Yeah,
I
a lot of
mean,
times they're just looking for somebody to talk to too, to help them understand where to go for help.
Well, since you brought this up publicly, I'm gonna say something. I don't appreciate you telling me that I'm on a campaign trail, okay? Because I'm not on a campaign trail. Say the same thing I told Chief Buckrup the other day. Right now, this board is enough. And quite frankly, I think that if devoting time to the board is a bigger deal to me right now than a campaign trail. So if you want to assume I'm on a campaign trail, you can assume it, but don't say it in public because I'm not.
It's fine, Larry. You've never said anything about all of this for years. Everything you brought up about the loans, we've already been down this road. We've already been through everything that you brought up, we've already done. And actually, I asked Mike about the maintenance records that he used to provide. It used to be a thick packet. He used to sit down there on his table every time he came in here.
No, not every time. I respectfully disagree, because
If
I
he would let me
keep them.
finish, because I asked Mike what happened, when was the last time he done it? And in his text, he replied back, he stopped giving them to him because no one wanted them. But again, I don't know if that was when he was on the board or not, so that's why I'm telling you, I don't know. But it's something we can pull out of the system and give you, it's not a big
So let
deal.
me ask you a question in regards to loans. Do you think that we could do a better job of managing our money, so like the radios, we don't have to take out as big a loan as what we did?
That's what we've been trying to talk about for years, Larry. That's
Well-
what we always saying for years, we've been talking about doing.
Well,
And so when we get hit with an ambulance bill like what we just dealt with, because we should have bought a new chassis for it, but we didn't want to take a loan out. We said, okay, let's just try to get this one through until we get closer to that other chassis, it's getting ready to fall off. So we're basically getting by with what we got, like in the case of that truck. But who would have known it was going to be $19,000? Because I went and picked it up after our last board meeting, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, I went and picked it up and drove it back. It ran fine. And then the next morning they came outside into the bay, and it was it was an antifreeze, I think it was all over the ground or something had given out on it. But yeah, it's just been one thing after another.
So let me ask you a question. So we spent, what, almost $40,000 on a car. We just spent $7,000 in cabinets, $3,200 on granite or marble tops. Do you think the money could have been better used on the radios?
Could have been, no, because it came out of the township funds. Because of what she was just talking about, I saved the township money by not spending it to be able to put back into our assets. So if I'm wrong for saving money and doing exactly what we're talking about, so I didn't have to get a loan to redo the kitchen, you can hate me for it. But I actually saved money in order to help better the facilities for the people that live here and work here each and every day.
The car didn't come out of the township funds.
Never said did. He was talking about the remodeling.
No, he mentioned remodeling and the car.
So, well, let me ask you this. So we remodeled, okay, that's fine. But my question is, did we have to spend $3,200 on granite top when we could have bought a laminate top?
He said I didn't even see that bid, so I'm not even sure what happened with that one. Because some of that stuff I thought they was actually donating
They did.
to us.
So
They
the
did.
original bid was close to $30,000, and Express came in and took care of a lot.
And it
of
just,
it.
that's what I thought. So
It's
yeah,
a
what you're
donation.
seeing was not quite what it was actually all there. Okay, that's what I thought.
The original cost of the countertops was close to $15,000, and a lot of people donated and did stuff
That's what I thought too.
to make
Okay.
that a better deal. Like the cabinets he sees he doesn't see that we got an abundance of cabinets past that. So and
Speaking of which, somebody sitting behind you actually helped us out too. Would you like to share how you helped us out?
that'd be
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, what was I doing?
What was your company able to help us do?
Oh, how many mattresses was it?
So this is the kind of stuff we do to help save money, but again, we just continue to waste money. Go ahead.
The company that I
You beat up
previously
over-
worked for, BMC donated 20 to 25 mattresses and box springs, for both firehouses. And mattress protectors.
And that was not.
I don't remember. No, the mattresses a piece were about $450. And
It
we
was
got,
about 25 grand that we got for free.
that people have put in the effort to go out and solicit and get those donations and try to save the township money.
And I remember several years ago, and I know what he's gonna say. I remember several years ago, sitting in this very room, we talked about remodeling Station 31.
I remember you out here talking about getting donations and
getting
putting in the hard
volunteers.
work, and you got people doing it, and you're cutting them down sitting at that table right there now.
No, let me finish, Mr. Russell.
So
I said we should get volunteers to help us do that. And at that point, a man stood up and said, I'll do it, and I'll have to do it on my weekends, but I'll do it.
Mhm.
Now, what I was told in later meetings is, well, he never gave us his phone number. Well, neither the board nor the trustee ever went to him after the meeting and asked him for his phone number. So, yeah, we've tried to get people to volunteer before, and the board has not taken us up on that either. And I appreciate people who volunteer, but you know, this is where our lines of communication suck, quite frankly. And that's what we need to clear up, is our lines of communication. You know, the board, did you have any idea what was going on with the kitchen? As far as donations or
I
anything?
didn't even know they did anything with it.
I knew that they had the estimate and so forth, but I didn't know that people were donating, okay?
Lowe's donated a refrigerator, and
Well, years ago when I was still in Shipley, they gave us 3 for here and 3 for down there, didn't they?
yeah, so
That's what I thought.
they couldn't do it this year for all 3, so we've been working on getting with the local Eagles and the Legions and stuff, trying to get them to donate and finance.
See,
for
you're
the
saying we're busting you guys and complaining to you guys. Where's the communication that you're doing that? We've been to meetings all the time here. Where's the communication on everybody's part? You know, I don't wanna come here and end up looking like an idiot because somebody's donating something, but you guys never bothered to say anything either. I mean, that's not our intent, to sit up here and look like idiots or to belittle anybody.
I you know, and this is just my personal opinion, but I think the guys on the fire department that sit in these meetings and listen to all of it, I don't think they feel that you're not trying to just hammer the fire department. I mean, and I told you that in the meeting, that we had the other day. Obviously, you disagree. Well, I mean, we disagree on that. I think if you ask them, then, you know, they come out here and all they hear about is how bad the fire department is.
Nobody said the fire department was bad, okay? So let's just get that straight. Nobody said the fire, matter of fact, if you remember at the beginning, I was praising our fire department, if you remember at the beginning. And I honestly think they're good people. And I look at Facebook and I see what people are saying about them. I honestly think they're good people. We had that conversation.
We did. I agree. I just said that.
So no, you're saying we're talking about, they think we're bad people.
It's more about the management is what they're always trying, not managing it correctly. And we just give example of how we've saved money.
Yes.
I think with your, with what you were talking about earlier, that you want, reports from different people, that might help the communication and that you would be more informed. That sounds like a good idea. And you would know a little bit more about what's going on. So, I mean, in the past, like you've said, you can't do anything about the past, but maybe if you implement this, maybe you would be more informed.
You guys have anything? Any old business, any new business? Good to the order? Anybody have anything?
Oh, I have a bunch of.
Okay.
Okay, check 22872. This check was written in 12/31/2020, and it was for $2,375. It was never put in to the financial report in 2020. And Denise said at that meeting that we were at that nothing was missing, but this was missing. And I had asked for the disbursements for January and February, and then I asked for the March ones. Well, the balance was different, and so I believe the mistake was probably caught in March when she did the bank check. And then she keyed the check back into January. So we've got a check that was written in 2020 that never made it into the financial statement. And this, part of the reason this happens is because what I brought out before, when you're doing checks and they're not in order, you're voiding some, then you're writing some from 2021, then you're going back to 2020, then you're voiding some more, then you're going back to 2020, then back to 2021, and it's a mess. And this check was missed in our financials. Also, I got a question about,
I have a question. I stepped out for a minute. What's missing? What check number and what amount is missing, and who's the vendor, and
it was check 22872. It was missing from the 2020 financials. It has now been put into 2021.
okay.
And it was
Dollar
to
amount?
Conway Shields.
Okay.
Check 22872. If anybody wants to see a copy, I got it.
Shields. What's the amount?
$2,375. And maybe too, if that check was put into 2020, we would have possibly gone, I probably need to double check that. We might have gone over budget.
Was this brought to her attention prior to this meeting?
I emailed at one point and said there must have been some difference because my ending balance didn't match the beginning balance. And so then when I printed off the next report that she sent me, this check appeared when it wasn't on the first report. So she
Do
had.
you know when you sent that email?
Not right offhand. I don't have the date. I was wondering why there was no transfer needed in 2021 to keep our firefighting department in the black. At the end of April, the report that I got showed we only had $10,000 in there, and we had a payroll on May 5th. So how did that payroll get paid?
I have no idea.
Board doesn't know.
Well, And the same question would go for the June second payroll. I don't know how these payrolls are getting paid unless you're taking money from other funds. So there's no answer.
The
Scott?
question is,
I'm just listening to public comment, so I'm listening to you.
Okay, well, it'd be nice to get an answer for some of this stuff.
And call Scott when he's in the office. Not at a board meeting.
He's not in the office. You have to
He's
leave
got
a
a phone
message.
number. Board meetings are not the appropriate place to bring up issues.
yes.
I'm not bringing up
I
an
just-
issue, I'm asking a question.
I respectfully disagree, because if transfer of funds is happening, that is action that the board should be taking. It shouldn't be taken upon somebody in the office just to transfer funds. That's a board.
She doesn't know that a transfer of funds is happening.
That's what
She's
she's
asking
asking.
a question.
Yeah,
So
she's
that
asking a
question
question.
should go to the clerk who actually does that.
No, she can't transfer funds unless she's given the authority to do so.
Right, but you don't know that she's done that. That's what you just said.
Well, the question was,
She
how
can't.
was it paid?
She can't do it because it hasn't been approved by the board. The board has to approve transfer. Did the core relief numbers ever get updated from the 2020 so we can look at those?
Yes,
Okay, so they're available to get.
I sent those out, what, a day or two after the meeting, that meeting.
Okay, I must not have received them, but, okay. I've asked this question, and Larry mentioned it at the meeting before. Denise said she was gonna look into it, and I emailed a couple times, but payroll deduction balance on the annual report, I wanted to know what the detail was. And was that balance paid? If it was, when was it paid? At that meeting, Denise said she would look into it. She agreed with Larry that the balance should be 0, and I haven't gotten any information.
What was my response to that?
I asked for the detail, you never gave me the detail, you
The
just said,
response of not being 0, what was my response to that? You and I went that.
yeah, you just said, well, I understand that there can be something that's carried forward, I understand that.
What was my response is what I'm asking you, because I did respond to that.
Yeah, you said it could be carried forward,
Hey, Tom,
it could be,
What I said
you guys
was
will open,
tiny
I'm not.
difference.
right, but
Carry
what,
forward and tiny difference.
I understand that, but what is the detail?
Okay,
You guys will-
I also
Hey,
approached that.
Scott, let me
right
ask you a
before the
question before you
meeting-
leave.
Right before the
Scott,
meeting,
one question before you leave.
This meeting's not over.
Who's responsible for updating our website?
It's not
How long do you want to do the website?
I've already started.
You already started.
It's
meeting-
down.
Our meeting's not
The other
over.
day, I've already started. I haven't completed it, but.
He's got a little farming rigs now.
I just wanna know what the detail is,
and
and when it got paid.
But I approached you before the meeting
I
and
understand.
told you that, for one, because there were numerous emails going back and forth, which I'm gonna work on a document request form, so we don't have these constant back and forths, which you have also mentioned yourself. So, I told you right before the meeting that I apologize because there was an email that I just responded to that I apparently did not see due to the numerous emails back and forth, because that does happen, and I did explain to you that I would make sure you had that information, and you responded okay. So I guess my question
Okay,
is.
I didn't know that was in this last email.
I
thought,
that's what I told you, Trudy, when I walked in.
no, I thought the last email I sent you was on something else, but that's okay. I'll look at the details.
There was 2 things in the email. There was the payroll, there was the 513 to 531 bank transaction register, and you had asked for the annual financial from 1/1 to 531. Larry, I had also explained to you when you had asked about the May financials, being asked for month end on the 1st of the following month is to me rushing, can cause mistakes, and then the mistakes end up being called out, which I'm okay with, because if I need to know about something, I'm totally okay with that. But like I explained to you, you had asked if the financials would be available tonight,
Right,
and my response was, I would try,
right.
but I try to at least give myself until the 10th.
And
Okay.
that's why I didn't ask you about them tonight, because
Right.
of that
But-
conversation.
Again, you're right, Trudy, there was 2 subjects in that email. And I explained to you before the meeting that I had responded, and I apologized because I had missed one of your emails. So I will make sure that I have everything answered for you because that's my job, and I wanna make sure that you have the answers that you're looking for. But I also want them to be correct, because if they're not correct, then it turns into this, which is what I don't want to have happen. Does that make sense? Okay.
And then, concerning that as well, maybe, on when we discussed, page 9 on the annual report, the salaries weren't matching the, report, the year-to-date report, and you said you were going to look into that. Do you have?
I'm sorry, page 9
It was
of-
page 9 and page 11 on the annual report, and you said you were going to look into that, why they weren't matching on my, year-to-date salary report that you had given me,
page
and I didn't know if you had an answer on that.
Page 9 and 11 of the annual report. The wages didn't match. I will look to see if I possibly may have responded to you, because I know you and I were going back and forth about the payroll stuff and deductions, that you wanted to see deductions, so let me,
This would have been after the the February 24th meeting.
Okay.
I don't think we had any emails going back and forth about that.
well,
And the other thing I wanted to mention, and this is
especially,
just,
the thing is, there's numerous payroll emails, so because there seems to be a concern about people's deductions as well. I wanna make sure that I am covering and answering all of your emails and answering all of your questions. I'm sorry, go ahead.
and I did notice on the, gateway system, on the annual report, at least one of the pages that that you guys voted to not accept the annual report, at least one of the pages was changed when it was submitted to Gateway on the state. And that's it.
Anything? I'm gonna make a motion to adjourn. Anybody have anything?
I'm sorry, am I
What?
not supposed to submit changes?
Once I would get a clarification from the State Board of Accounts, but my understanding is once it's been voted on,
Okay.
We didn't vote.
No, we
we
didn't
voted it
pass
down,
it.
so it has to stay.
And it reverted back to the
Right.
previous year.
I
No,
Correct.
annual report did.
Oh, no,
We're talking
that,
about the budget.
yeah, the budget
We're talking about the annual
went
report.
back, but yeah, the report we didn't pass.
do have one other question. And was the annual report ever, put in the newspaper?
I believe it was sent to them.
Okay, I'll email you and ask you for the date.
Okay.
Cause I did not see it in the newspaper. Published.
Anything else? I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
You know, I believe we'll do something.